Comfort and growth don't go together. And that growth, by the way, is not based on what they think. What about the people around you? Are they saying you're improving? Because if you think you're improving, but they're saying, well, I'm not seeing any improvement, we've got to go with their view, not your views. Working more than 55 hours a week doesn't really benefit. And also it sets you up for some serious health issues, and also can be relationship issues, because you're squeezing out family. If you initiate change at the highest level, it cascades down. And that's how culture really changes. Any change made at the top affects everything.
Hi everyone, welcome to another Leaders Series episode, the GCS Leaders Series. Today we have Colin Hiles. Colin Hiles is an executive coach. I was lucky enough to attend some of his training earlier in the year as part of our Engage organisation and leadership training there. Found him very inspirational and someone that really helps you to develop good habits, really helps you to think about your performance as a leader, and really helps you to develop great tools that will help you to become a better leader and therefore help your business to do better. And I thought, as we do this Leaders Series, then who better than someone that develops great leaders and great businesses that kind of come on and give us the benefit of his experience and also his learning and also what he tells to some of the top businessmen within UK and global business. So without further ado, here's Colin. Hi, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very excited about this. I've been thinking about this. We're recording this in mid-January in the blistering cold. I've been thinking about this over Christmas, thinking, God, I can't wait to get inside Colin's brain. So really looking forward to it. Thank you very much for joining us. So as I said, Colin is an executive coach. He is the founder and CEO of Colin Hiles Consulting. And I was lucky enough to attend one of his executive coaching sessions, a kind of group session that he did with some of the Engage leaders, which is our group that GCS is part of. And I will be, not to kind of build you up too much, Colin, I was blown away. This is like this. I walked home and told my wife, this is the best leadership training I've ever had. So I'm a big fan, and therefore it's great to have you there. But I think I always start these conversations with just a little bit of the kind of the origin story, as it were. And I think what's particularly interesting about yourself, Colin, is you've obviously come into this world of executive coaching from not from your normal kind of area, which I think is probably maybe why you look at executive coaching and leadership in a slightly different way. So can you just give us a little bit about how you come to be here, how you come to kind of work within this field, and maybe why you come to work within this field?
Well, the origin story is being in California and running out of money. I was there, I love surfing, and so needed to make some money. And that took me into a business where they put personal development very, very high on the agenda. And I had not experienced that before. So for the first time, I was privy to developing oneself. And you would some of the money that you made was put into a pot. They called it the PD pot, personal development pot, and then you spent it on your own personal development. So that was the start. That was where it sort of started. And then from there, I've progressed, and I've been doing this now 30 years and gradually moved myself up to just solely working with really C-suite CFOs, mainly CEOs, and then any other C-suite. So it's been a long journey. It's something that I really enjoy doing. It's something I have a lot of passion about, because I believe that if you initiate, and you'll know this, if you initiate change at the highest level, it cascades down, and that's how culture really changes. So any change made at the top affects everything. So rather than trying to affect change lower down, then let's affect change where it will make the biggest impact.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we'll talk about it, and maybe we'll post a few of the things. But there's many. When we did the training for myself as a leader, there was a lot of very easy to remember tips. Quite a lot of us have talked about, don't say why this is happening to me, say why this is happening for me. And I think that's one of the things that, and then you're able, like you said, from myself learning this, then you easily kind of cascade it down within your business, which is why I thought it was such an interesting way of looking at it, because quite a lot in leadership, and you've probably seen this yourself, you're dealing with quite tough, complicated tasks, and then someone gives you quite tough, complicated solutions. And I feel like, Colin, you've decided not to do that. I don't want to give you complication. I want to try and simplify this.
Yeah, I love that word, simplification, because it's the hardest thing to do. But what I've learned working with CFOs and CEOs is ultimately they don't want theory, they want practical. Give me something I can do right now that is going to make the difference. So I was speaking with a CFO yesterday, and I used what you just said. She was experiencing a lot of issues, a lot of challenges with a certain group, a certain community. And it's very easy to fall foul to, I'm the victim, there's the villain, or there are the villains. And we all do it. I do it. Everyone does it. The trouble with that is there's no growth, there's no development, there's no improvement, because what we're saying is where I'm pointing my finger, that's where the change needs to happen. And if we're not part of the problem, we can't be part of the solution. And so the little reframe there, a way of just is, okay, rather than this is happening to me, what if this was happening for me? Well, then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, how is this helping me improve? What am I learning about the way that I respond to these individuals? What do I need to upskill myself on in order for this to work out as a better outcome? So happening for me, it evokes growth, improvement, development. And now there's a benefit now to the challenge rather than, no, they need to change, the problem's there and so on. So it's a lovely little reframe. And that's what leaders typically like. They like very practical tools that are easy to use and can be used immediately for immediate benefit.
And we'll talk more about the way that it works and how you interact with leaders. But just to kind of go back to this origin story, Colin, I was just interested there because firstly, it sounds like a really great idea. This whole idea of if you bill money, then you get money that you can then spend on training. I've never really heard about that. Is that it seems like quite an innovative idea? Were you I don't see a lot of other companies doing it. They obviously pay on training, but not. You take a bit of money for yourself for training. What did you, just out of interest, what did you spend your money on? What did you spend your training on? What did you think was the most important thing to develop yourself on?
Well, we used to have books, cassette tapes. I remember cassette tapes. I mean, you go and buy yourself a set of cassette tapes that was maybe a recording of a training that the person had done. It could be that you got yourself on certain training. And it was interesting because when I came back to the UK, that, as you rightly say, that's not what happened. I asked, where's the PD pot? A PD pot, they thought I wanted to go to the bathroom. PD pot, what are you talking about? Personal development pot, how's that work? What personal development pot? So I was amazed, you're going to pay me to go on a training? You actually will pay me? Wow. So, and that's, something that, once again, I've learned that often when you're investing your own money, you tend to take it a bit more seriously. When you're investing your own money, you tend to be a bit more committed. When you're investing your own money, you tend to take better notes. When it's costing you, it's a big difference. And it's another reframe. What if, rather than sat here going, okay, well, win me over, said speaker, what if you'd paid money to be there? You'd be leaning forward, leaning in, you'd be listening, making notes, asking questions, getting clarification. You'd be getting everything you can. So it was interesting to come back and actually have a slightly different experience to that. And it's the only experience I had, so I don't know whether that was true in other companies. I'm not sure, but certainly wasn't when we came over to the UK. It wasn't over here.
I definitely think that, for me, a lot of training and a lot of coaching doesn't always have the effect that you want it to have. It doesn't have the output. And I guess in your growth of your own business, I mean, did you start off, like you said, now, and some of the brands you work with, I know are very impressive. Did you start off, doing kind of coaching in big rooms with like aspiring managers, that sort of thing? Is that how you began? and then you've worked your way up to this, or?
It is exactly how I began. Yeah. So it would be one on a group, and then I've progressed into one-to-one coaching as predominantly what I do. And as you know, I have a very unusual value proposition, which is no growth, no pay. So if you're, CEO, you're looking for an executive coach, basically, when I say yes to you, I'm betting on you. I'm a betting man. I'm betting because you'll pay me nothing. And then at the end of the year, if you're a better leader as defined by your stakeholders, and that's quantified by 360 and also interviews that, yes, David's now adding more value to the business, he's improved, I get paid. So I put a lot of skin in the game. I don't know anyone else that's willing to put that much skin in the game. It's a huge risk on my part because here I am talking with you and all my clients are in their business doing what they're doing. I'm blind, I can't see. So no growth, no pay is a very unique value proposition. But what it means is that I'm interviewing my clients as much as they're interviewing me.
I find this fascinating, because it is a risk for you, isn't it? It's and you need to qualify. I'm sure of what this is about, and I guess this links into leadership lessons and lessons that you've learned along your period of time. So when you're talking to a leader and considering them as someone you're going to work with, what are the key things that you've learned that you look out for? For someone listening to this and thinking to themselves, what are the key things that you look for as a good leader? What are you looking out for?
Okay, so I've got 1 hour. Typically, it's a 1 hour interview, sometimes 30 minutes. So it's not very long. And numero uno, number one, first thing, humility.
Okay.
How coachable do I sense this person is? And humility, what's the opposite? Arrogance. Okay. Who likes working with arrogant people? Very few people go, oh, I love it. So the problem with arrogance is they're not open to feedback. They believe they're always right. They don't typically want any help. And that's not good for me. It's not a good bet. So I have ways of finding out how humble they are with some questions that I ask that just sound like questions you would ask. But it gives me a sense of where are they from, let's say, arrogance to humility. Where are they on that? So humble is really important, a very, very important. I want to see that they have a degree of humility. I mean, what they're saying is, yes, I've arrived, Colin. I'm a CEO of a FTSE 20, but I know I can be better. I know I can improve. And if that message comes across loud and clear, then that's my first tick. Very important. If there's a sense of arrogance, then firstly, that's a bit of a red flag. Oh, okay. Second thing I'm looking for really is courage, because change requires courage. And courage isn't a feeling. You don't feel courageous. With a lot of seniors and execs, they often have a lot of confidence. I'm not looking for confidence. And confidence is felt. You can feel confident, and it comes from competence. I'm competent, which causes me to feel confident. Whereas courage isn't a feeling. You don't feel courageous. And we talked about this, when we were together and you did that, the arrow snap. So you're feeling in the moment scared, vulnerable, frightened, but you'll still take the action in spite. And I need that, because comfort and growth don't go together. And I only get paid if they grow. I don't get paid if they don't grow. So, and their growth, by the way, is not based on what they think. They go, yeah, I'm definitely improving. What about the people around you? Are they saying you're improving? Because if you think you're improving, but they're saying, well, I'm not seeing any improvement, we've got to go with their view, not your view. So them two are important. And the last one really is responsibility, that there is a degree of responsibility that ultimately I can't finger point. I can't say I haven't done it this month, Colin, because it's been crazy. No, you've got to knuckle down and you've got to take responsibility to do what you say you're going to do. So those three things are pretty important.
Do you find that C-suite leaders, because basically what you're doing is really pushing their buttons and making it hard, challenging them. Do you find that, obviously there's a challenging job they have, but there's not many people that are actually challenging them like that?
No, that's right. And so yeah, some respond really well to that and some don't. And that's what I need to suss out in that interview. because I'm being interviewed and they're probably interviewing 2 other coaches as well. So, but the difference is I'm interviewing them, which the other coaches won't be. And when you turn down, a CEO of a FTSE 10, they're not very happy. It's a privilege to be working with them, and I'm like, nah, I'm not your coach, but I'll find your coach. So it's an interesting dynamic. It's an unusual dynamic because I'm a betting man. I'm betting a year's income. And some people they're just not a good bet. If you were sat next to me, you'd probably say, Colin, I'm not sure this is a good bet for you. I go, I think you're right, David, So I've got to see those things. Those things are really important. And that's really what I'm trying to do in that first interview, usually 30 minutes, an hour, trying to suss out, where are they? Where are they for humility? Where are they for courage? Where are they for responsibility?
Just going into that, because I was just thinking about, people that we look at as, the mega business owners, like the real kind of entrepreneurs. And just what you're saying there, I'm just thinking about humility, and I'm thinking about like the tech bros and, these types of people. Do you think that this works better in a kind of, corporate CEO type way, and maybe an entrepreneur, let's say like Elon Musk or something like that? I'm assuming you probably wouldn't, you might want to, but you probably, but I just feel from what you've just said that he wouldn't be on your list.
No.
Even though he's Elon Musk.
Yeah, probably not. No, remember, I'm not being paid unless there's improvement.
Yeah.
It's very different to the way coaching typically works, which is you pay me per hour.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, so when you're being paid per hour, which I've done, and I still do, right? Someone can say to you, Colin, I haven't done what you said this month. I've been too busy. What can you do? You can't do anything.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. Fine. I wouldn't understand. The problem is they're always too busy. When you're going to get a month when you're not, I mean, you run a business, it's not like 1 month you're twiddling your thumbs thinking, God, I don't know what to do this month. It's busy is the norm in this very turbulent world that we're in. So I can't let them use that as an excuse. And so, you're right. There will be certain people that I would say no to. That doesn't make them bad, and it doesn't make them bad leaders in any way, shape or form. It just means it's not the type of leader that I want to work with.
Yeah, because I guess they would, some of the people that I've just mentioned there are probably wouldn't listen to change, would they?
No,
they've affected their own change, and you need people that are open to the fact they're not perfect.
Exactly. And it's coachability again. So if I was to ask, if I was to interview anyone around you and say, how coachable is David? And let's put it on a 1 to 10. 1 is not coachable, 10 is highly coachable. Everyone's got their view. Now, humility would typically tip you into the sort of the 6, the 7, and the 8. Higher towards coachable. Yeah, they're quite coachable. I feel like I can go to them, give them feedback. They typically will ask me for feedback. They're very open. Yeah. Oh, no, you wouldn't go and give them feedback. No. That really wouldn't be a good thing to do. That could be career limiting right there. So no, I'd score them a 1. See, every leader is somewhere on that scale. And that's a very good litmus test. How coachable would the people around me say I am? Because that's demonstrated in behavior, openness, asking for feedback, requesting it from others. You run a meeting and all hands, and then, okay, just give me some feedback. How did that go? Is there anything that I did well? Is there anything I could improve on? Oh yeah, they're very coachable. They're constantly asking. Oh, they never ask for feedback. No, they never ask for feedback. It's not something. So that's why that one's quite important.
So when you start working with people, thinking about those leadership myths, you mentioned one there, I'm too busy to do this, I'm too busy to develop. How do you go about challenging people? You've talked there about reframing. I assume that, that's what you're doing all the time, is to kind of get people out of their normal BAU state into a listen to me state.
Into a growth state, yeah. So, all right, no growth, no pay. There are certain things that I advocate early on, and I advocate it based on science. So it's backed in science. It's not my opinion. And it's part of a test to see whether they do it or not. And let's say in month 1 they don't, and in month 2 they don't. So that's 2 calls in, they haven't. And in month 3, we now have another call and they haven't done it. And they'll have reasons why they haven't done it. Now, I'm not being paid, so this gives me the opportunity to have a very, very candid conversation with them. And I'll give you an example. I said to one person, right, we're 3 months in. Month 1, you didn't do it. Month 2, you didn't do it. Now we're month 3. You've still not done it. You've got your reasons. So maybe coaching for you isn't right now. And no cost to you. Let's call it quits. Let's stop right here. And the person went, hang on, whoa, is my coach firing me? It's like, yeah. Yeah, because we shook hands and you made a commitment and I'm making a commitment and you're not following through on your commitment. Now, you see, you can only do that if you're not being paid. You can't do that. It's hard to do that if you're being paid. It gives a unique leverage. Now, that person turned it around, by the way. So I got a message from his PA to say he's good as a maniac. He's trying to do everything he should have done in 3 months in 2 days. But that's the power of no growth, no pay. I can call someone out. They can't use, shut up, I'll pay you, I'll get round to it next month. And no one would say it like that. That's not the way they would say it. Of course not. But, that's the sort of the intent. Hey, I'm paying you, you're being paid. I've just been a bit busy. See, can't do that. Can't do that when I'm not being paid. I'm not being paid. I'm not being paid anything. So I'm not willing to go another month and hear another excuse. So that accountability that I'm able to bring to the fold can be a differentiator and provide the pressure to knuckle down and do what you say you're going to do and do it every month.
And what are, when you get people listening to you, when you're talking about reframing, what are the key things that you have to work on? Before I ask that question, I'm going to give you a bit of humility, because for me, I'm the CEO of a reasonably sized recruitment business, right? But when we talk about the CEO of a FTSE 10 or a multi-billion, multi-global, I tend to think to myself, well, they must be pretty good at their job. They must be, top of their game.
Yes.
So I would assume to myself that there can't be that much they're doing wrong, but I assume they are, because they're working with a coach.
Well, it's not about wrong per se. This is a journey, good to great. That there's always another level. If you remember that exercise we did together when I said, put your hands up as high as you can. Can you get them any higher? Everyone moved their hands up that little bit further. And it's like, well, why didn't you do that in the first place? In other words, there's always another level for us to go to, for you, for me, for everybody. The potential is there. It's realizing that potential. And that's why humility is important, because they're saying, yeah, I'm running a pretty big business. That's success in itself. But I know there's potential to be realized. I know I could improve. I know I could be better. So it's not a bad to good. It's a good to great journey. And that's the difference. See, if you go into the world of sport, you'll always find that any elite person in sport has coaches around them. Why? Because they know that they're essential to go to the next level, to eke out another 1%, because that can be the difference between winning and losing. And so they make sure that they have those people around them. They have coaches around them, and it's their job to tap that potential that is inherent, is there. They know they've got it, but they need help, support, guidance, mentorship, coaching to pull it out of them. Now, if you think about, have you got children?
3 girls,
right,
yes. 3
okay.
teenage girls.
Right.
Yep.
So, and they go to school.
One of them has just started. I think she's one of the few graduates that's managed to find a full-time job. So congratulations to
her. Right. So, yeah. Now, if you think about how much time as parents we think about the school they're going into. Yeah, we don't just throw them in. We think about the school, the resources, the teachers, because we know that the potential that's inside that child will not be realized unless the external world is set up right. And so we think about it. And that doesn't change just because we've left school. So having people around us that challenge us, that provoke us, that push us, that give us feedback, that's essential. And that's why you'll find elites across any spectrum will have people around them that help them tap that little bit of extra potential. And so, certain leaders that I've worked with, they know that, and they know that it's essential that they get mentors around them, sponsors around them, coaches around them, that they have that support squad that's there solely to really help them go to the next level, to up level themselves. And they do it very deliberately. And so that's really, I'm just one of a support squad person, if you like, that any CEO, CFO would have around them that they can turn to. And most of those people will be external to the business, but a few will also be internal to the business as well.
Yeah. I know you've worked quite a lot with sporting, people, teams, etc., etc. I don't know if you want to tell us a few, but do you feel that the world of sport has informed your approach to business, and the way, and vice versa?
Yeah, and vice versa. Absolutely, there's a vice versa. So yes, of course, because in the world of sport and elite sports people, they tend to have more resources available to them than I've certainly seen in the corporate world. And that's what we spoke about. For instance, remember that first exercise where I said, okay, write down, if someone was going to take your role for the next 6 months and you had to go and recruit that person, what would you look for? And everyone wrote down, and what we found was that 80% of the things that were written down were mindset. It was mindset stuff. It wasn't skill set. It wasn't knowledge set. And that's that realization that actually mindset really makes a big difference. Now, if you go into the world of sport, mindset is definitely taken care of. You come into the world of the corporate world and it isn't. We don't go on many programs that help us with our mindset. We don't typically get around people that help us with our mindset. We don't get a toolkit that helps us with our mindset. It's a sort of given. And so most of the budget and money on training is spent on skill set. What's the skills this person needs to do their job well? And I pushed back on that early days, as I did also with a group of individuals that we worked with, that we were Speakers International at the time. And it was like, no. We need both. We need toolkit for both. And we're shortchanging people if we don't provide a mindset toolkit, because every day they're under pressure. Every day they need to perform, and that toolkit will serve them really well. And so one of those tools, as you know, the shift tool, which isn't happening to me, it's happening for me, is an example of a mindset tool that helps me respond more calmly, more responsibly than if this is happening to me and I'm pissed off and there's the problem. And that's typically not going to get that much change. So
yeah, I think the best mindset one that we did was you give out your kind of blue band at the end, isn't it? And it's the no complaint. So what I would say is that we will obviously post the links to your website. Obviously, if you're a CEO that is looking for an executive coach, you can kind of reach out to Colin, and I'm sure he'll be happy to give you his 30 minutes. But the website links into a newsletter which gives a lot of the basis of this whole mindset. And we'll obviously post those links there. But one of the interesting things it's the no complaints challenge, isn't it? So how long is it? I mean, it was one of the hardest things I've ever done, but and I've run marathons and that sort of stuff, but this is probably the hardest thing I've ever done. So it's no complaints for 4 weeks or something, isn't it?
Well, I did 4 weeks. For all of you, it was 1 week.
Oh, it's 1 week.
One week.
Yeah.
1 week where at no point are you allowed to complain. And so for the listeners, we give out a blue band, you put it on your wrist and you start the challenge. And the goal is no complaints. If you complain, then you take it off that risk, you put it on that risk, and then you start back from day one. So you have to do 7 days, no complaints on a wrist. And it seems pretty easy, but it's not. It's, as you rightly say, it's very, very hard because we don't realize how often we allow our brain to go into a victim state. And it's a social thing. It's what we do. We come home, how was your day, darling? Oh, nightmare today, you wouldn't believe. And off I go on my story. It's the norm. So the whole idea is see what it's like when you don't do that. And as you know, it's hard to do, but you really begin to rewire your brain tremendously because you train it not to go into victim, but actually to stay in a space where you can affect change. So this accept and affect change. And Yeah, it's another example of a mindset training tool, and we gamify it, as you know. We have a bit of fun around it. The whole idea is when you flip it across, pat yourself on the back because you're learning about a pattern of thinking that you're doing without knowing that you can change. Now, it doesn't mean that for the rest of our lives we won't complain, but at least we have an experience of complaining, not complaining, and actually seeing, wow, there's a big difference when you don't allow yourself to go there, how you tend to fixate and focus more on solutions. You take more ownership for your emotions. You don't get so angry, so pissed off, so upset as a result. And you often see others and you realize, wow, most of the time they open their mouth, they're actually complaining. That's typically what they
Yeah.
do most of the time. So it gives a very good insight. But yes, it's a toughie, that one.
It's funny. It took me, I would say, 2.5 months to do it. Well, interestingly, every time you said pat yourself on the back, every time I switched it, I basically used that minute or two to moan about everything that had happened to me, and then I put it back on. Right, I'm back. I let it all out. But I think that what you talk there about mindset, and you talk about being mindful, and I think that one of the things I truly believe, and I've truly taken from this, is when people are in business, particularly if they're in a role that they're quite comfortable in, where they've been there for a while, maybe they've got a senior position, is you're not totally aware of everything you're saying. You're not thinking about it. You're not mindful of yourself. And that's one of the key things I learned from this. And what I would say is, since we had our training, our business has been on the up. So it has worked. I can be but I think that's one of the things, is that ability to, and the whole Leaders Series, this whole podcast is about learning about leadership and the things that we take from this. When I have a good conversation, it's about talking to someone that is open, that realizes they've made mistakes along the way, that has great advice, that listens and is humorous sometimes. But I think that for me, and going back to that sporting world, you never imagine, like you talk a lot about golfers, you never imagine a golfer just to take a shot and not think about his shot, however good he is, right? I feel in business, because it's, we do this every day, almost like you said. I think you've talked a lot about being on autopilot, not thinking about what we're doing on a day-to-day. Can you take us into that autopilot thing? Because I think that's quite useful as well, Colin.
Yeah, so research has sort of shown that 45% of the day we're driven by habits, autopilot. And that's good because it's an energy saving, part of that, the way that we're built. So the brain decides, let's automate this. You don't have to think about it anymore. The trouble is that some of the things that we do don't support us at going to the next level. So we have to become aware of what things are getting in the way of me going to the next level. So, for example, as we've talked about it, complaining a lot is an example of something that gets in the way of going to the next level. Because if you don't believe you're part of the problem, you can't be part of the solution. The moment that I stop finger pointing, or as you know, we had a bit of fun where we said, one finger forward, 3 fingers back. So there's always more fingers coming here than there are going there unless I do that. So
that'll work on the YouTube there, Colin, not so much on the audio.
Yeah, well, I'm pointing one thing forward and 3 fingers are coming back at me.
Yeah.
So it's really, that's that taking responsibility. It's like I'm part of the problem. And as soon as I'm part of the problem, I'm then part of the solution. Because I can affect change. I can do something. And so that's why responsibility is really foundational. It's where it starts. Unless we're happy to take responsibility, we're in trouble. But we aren't aware of so many things. All of us have got blind spots. I've got blind spots. You've got blind spots. Everyone's got blind spots. And so awareness of those blind spots is really important, because then you can make a decision. Should I change it or should I keep it? And you're making an informed decision at that point. Yeah, I'm going to keep it. No, I'm going to change it. Great. Okay, good. So a lot of the work that I do is awareness raising to some of the things that an exec does that's either supporting them or not supporting them in becoming a better leader. So if you really want to improve, you've got to be aware of what's getting in the way. What is it that's interfering with you improving? And then that's the bit you have to change. But more often than not, we're not aware of those. So, and once you're aware of it, then you can change it. So awareness is curative. As you become aware, you're able to then change what it is that you were unaware of. And that's why feedback is important, because often we need feedback to wake us up to something that we didn't realize that we do. Oh, I didn't realize I do that. Wow. Okay, great. I'm not going to do that anymore. That's not very helpful.
And I think that's why you do the course Be Yourself Better, which is really kind of knowing yourself and then improving on the person that you are.
Yeah.
And I guess that's all you can do.
Yeah, be yourself, because everyone else is taken up, and better. So, it all starts with that question: how good are you at getting better?
Yeah.
How good are you at getting better? And that's where how good are you at getting better? Because if you're a parent, and if you had parents or carers, there was an expectation that each year you're going to get better. You go to the next level. Well, it's the same. Why has it changed for us? How am I getting better every year? Am I improving this year on last year? Have I developed myself as a leader? It's no different. We have that expectation on our children, or do we have that expectation on ourselves? How good am I at getting better? And then how do you measure better? See, I measure it by 360 in interviews, then 360 in interviews. That's how I measure better. And we can actually quantify, yeah, you have got better in the eyes of your stakeholders.
And I guess there's a great link now when we talk about automating and autopiloting and enhancing yourself. I know that one of the things you're very interested in, and interesting, is the first podcast I've done for a while where we haven't talked about AI and automation. So now I'm going to talk about AI and automation just to get into it. But I know that you've, as an executive coach, you're starting to think about how executives can work in this new world where they can be enhanced, where some of their processes can be automated. And I know that's kind of becoming part of the services and the advice that you're giving. So we'll dig into this a bit more, but do you want to just give us a flavour of that, Colin?
Yeah, so let me sort of go high level, then we'll come down to a tool that I've just built, which actually is an automation tool for my clients. So my methodology is called Life Aligned Exec. And Life Aligned Exec has one principle, which is change happens in the calendar. So as a coach, I put a lot of emphasis on a calendar. So if I was working with you, I'd want to see your calendar, because your calendar tells me everything. It tells me whether you're more firefighter or strategic. It tells me whether or not you take care of yourself. It is a view into your future. The calendar doesn't lie. And if it's not in your calendar, it's not in your future. So I, as an executive coach, take someone's calendar extremely seriously. So change happens in the calendar, life first, calendar second. Now, under that, I have 3 scorecards: bolder, faster, and smarter. So let's just talk about smarter. The smarter scorecard is really all about making sure that for every hour, you get the biggest return on investment as the most senior person for every hour. And to do that, we look at it through 3 lenses. And that first lens is revenue. Second lens is recovery. Third lens here is relationships, or our relationships. So let's talk about revenue, and let's just sharpen it. So in order to really see whether you're getting the highest return for the time that you're investing, we break revenue down into 10K, 1K, 110. Now 10K means that this chunk of time is really about strategy, growth, winning in the marketplace. So if you was to say, Colin, this 1 hour here, this was with me and my senior leaders, and we were thinking about vision and strategy, that's 10K. That's the highest return, because you're really shaping the growth of the business. 1K is more leadership leverage. What were you doing here? Well, I was coaching one of my team. Okay, great. So that's a 1K investment. Now, those 2 are what I call above the line. That's growth. Now, below the line, it's more maintenance, it's more operational, it's more keeping the lights on. So that's 100. And then 10 is more admin. Shouldn't see too much of that. Now, what we used to do was we'd go into my client's calendar and they would talk me through, and we would figure out, okay, revenue was at 10K, 1K, 100 or 10. What about recovery? When do you recover? It looks like you go meeting. Did you even go to the toilet that day? I mean, did you eat even? Because I can't. So there's no recovery. And then relationships, are you spending time with the most important people that are going to help you achieve your strategic projects? So we used to do that all manually. Now, with AI, I built this tool where all we need to do is fill out a timesheet, a little time log, upload it onto Time ROI. And what Time ROI does is it benchmarks that leader against the top 10%, and it shows them how much they're getting from. So it gives them a score, and then it breaks down for revenue, 10K, 1K, recovery, and also relationships. It gives them a score on that, and then it gives them my recommendation. So that's my brain built into the tool. And my clients are loving it because every week they get a report that gives them really quality feedback on where their time is being invested and whether or not they're getting the right return. So if they're too much below the line, too much maintenance, too much operational, they've got to get above the line. You've got to get a little bit more above the line. So that's how I'm using AI. And so far, my clients have loved it because we don't have to do that manually anymore.
Yeah, no, I think I've always thought about that kind of work diary. It's always very, it's always quite enlightening when you do a work diary and then work out what you actually do on a week to week basis.
It's shocking.
I can't believe I spend all my time doing this.
Yes, it can be shocking. It really can. It's back to like the awareness of the band. I didn't realize that I keep complaining. I had no idea that So that's why it's so powerful. And if you think about it, strategy and what we do day to day, what's the bridge? Your calendar. Your calendar is the bridge. And that's why a calendar is so important, because if it's not in your calendar, it's not in your future. And if you want to be a more strategic leader, adding more value to the business, then it's important that you're saying no to the things that gives you free time to say yes to the things that will drive more strategy and a greater business, more growth. We don't want to see you being pulled down to things. We don't want to see you in meetings you shouldn't be in. And do you remember the no button? It's really about no. Start saying no to those things. And for some people, it's very hard to say no, especially entrepreneurs. They want to be in everything and over everything. There is this need to sort of be there for everything. And that's only going to create a bottleneck in your business. That's not going to create growth. So this report shows and flags. And then on the next page, what they get is a dashboard that shows trends. And I say trend is your friend. So we're not interested in 1 week per se. We're interested in what's the trend over the month. Are you trending more towards strategy? Are you trending more towards recovery, looking after yourself, building in small gaps like 15 minutes between meetings, going out and having a lunch, going for a walk, building it in? And that should be around 5 to 8 hours a week, should be in a leader's diary. That's what I want to see. And that's benchmarked against the top 10%. And are you spending time with the right people who are going to help you achieve what you're basically being paid to achieve? So that shows the trend, and the trend is what we're more interested in, not so much week to week, because certain weeks will require more operational thinking, more operational time, keeping the lights on, but you can't be there all the time. You've really got to be in that 1K, 10K. So the tool, as I say, now automates all of that, and all they need to do, and most of them get their EA to do it, so it's very quick. And then they get the report, and then they have what we call a Sunday summit. It's not always on Sunday. It could be a Friday afternoon. It could be a Monday morning. And they look at that report, and then they figure out what they're going to do. And if you remember Win, Learn, Change, wins.
Still doing it. Doing it.
There you go.
I'm every day. I'm quite, it's one win, one learn, one change.
Absolutely. So what's worked last week that I need to continue doing? What didn't work? Where was I pulled down? Where do I need to start saying no to in order to free up? What boundaries do I need to put in place? And then what will I change for next time? And this is how you get incremental change, over a period of time. Remember, I worked with them for a whole year. So basically what we're saying is the calendar we start with looks very different to the calendar we end up with. And that's another measurable, because we can look at the calendar. We can see the trend. You were spending more time below the line. You were being dragged down. You were in meetings you shouldn't be in. You weren't looking after yourself, so there's no sustainability. You weren't spending time with the right people, and now you are. And as a result, you're adding more value to the business and growing the business, which is the expectation of any leader, senior leader in a business. So that's the tool.
Have you ever come across a leader, when you look at it, because I would expect every single leader you look at, the calendar is maxed out. Have you ever come across one that's, oh my God, you're not really doing much?
No.
You need to do a bit more.
No.
No.
And the goal is also, there's a lot of research out there that says that working more than 55 hours a week doesn't really benefit. And also it sets you up for some serious health issues, and also can be relationship issues, because you're squeezing out family. So the goal is to get there. Now, most of the C-suite that I work with are well over 50 hours, 55 hours a week. So, but the goal over a period of time is to bring that down. And by the way, this work means everything has to go into your calendar. You work at a weekend, got to go in your calendar. You get on and you do emails 8 o'clock at night, got to go in your calendar. Everything has to go in your calendar. You go to the gym in the morning, got to go in your calendar. Everything has to go in the calendar, because otherwise it doesn't give us a true reflection of how much you're actually working, how many hours a week you are really working. Because if you don't put in that 1 hour every night that you get on and do emails at 8 o'clock at night, that's 5 hours that you're not including. And that might push you into a 65 or 70 hour week. And as your coach, I need to know that, because what we want to do is we want to eliminate the need to do that as best we can. Eliminate working all weekends as best we can, because recovery is what gives sustainability. If you aren't recovering, if you aren't re-energizing, if you're not filling up the battery, plugging yourself in, then you're going to burn out. And the statistics on burnout, especially for senior people, are only ever rising. They're not going down, they're going up. And so that's why recovery is so important. I want to see it in your diary. I want to see that you recover. I want to see that you take it seriously. Because as a leader, you know that anyone looking at you, people can't be what they can't see. If they see you looking after yourself, then that gives them permission to look after themselves. If they see that you're always on, I ping you an email, you ping me an email, you send me an email Sunday, well, I'm going to be watching out for that, because I want to email you back, because I want you to think that I'm on it. Well, yeah, that's not necessarily role modeling the way that one needs to role model, because people can't be what they can't see.
It creates those difficult cultures which aren't sustainable,
Absolutely.
either for yourself or for your business.
Absolutely.
And I just love the way that when we talk about it, it goes back to that whole sport thing as well. It kind of makes management, because that's how you think that sports people, you can improve. It's the inches thing that the England Rugby World Cup that kind of started. If you just get these inches here, this is how you improve. And I guess that comes back to it. So I think, one of my final questions for you, Colin, is, and linking this into technology and automation, if you were, we have aspiring leaders listening to this, that may be starting to move into management. What is your best advice to them? What should they be looking to do as they move up the greasy pole, as it were, of leadership and management, corporate?
Businesses are, if you don't understand people, you don't understand business. So the people element is really important. And the higher you go, the more important it is, because to move up, to be promoted, says technically you've got what you need. You wouldn't be given the position if technically you didn't tick those boxes. So tick, but the people side of the equation becomes even more important the higher you go. And so that's where then the upskilling typically needs to happen. the people side of the equation. So no matter how good you are, how can I get better at inspiring, creating stronger engagement through my teams as well? How do I lift leaders up below me? How do I retain talent? Because talent acquisition now is very hard. So those things become that differentiator. And I'll say this, that every one of us has a brand story. That's the story that people tell about us in rooms that we're not in. And when your brand story is around gets the job done, takes care of people, it's a good brand story that means you will continue to climb this greasy pole. If you're only stuck on gets the job done but pisses everybody off, or creates disengagement, or bleeds talent out the business, you're not going to climb much higher, and you're not going to climb very fast. So that's where the people side becomes the differentiator more often than not.
So it's thinking really about how you engage with people, the impression you leave, what people are looking for a leader to be, and then trying to kind of match up to that. And I guess we would both say, as people trying to develop leaders, is, learn. No one's perfect. No one knows it all. You can use go to the colinhiles.com website and you can get some great tips and stuff. But there's so many books out there, aren't there, that really are helpful, and YouTube, podcasts, that sort of. Anything that you kind of recommend, Colin? And is there a particular book that you think, if you had one recommendation, like the book on the beach for leadership, or any book really?
God, so many books. I mean, the thing about books is it's so contextual. It's what are you looking to get from the book? I'd say one of the best books that I've read on leadership, Extraordinary Leader by Zenga Folkman.
Right, okay.
Simply because it's very research based. It's not opinion. There's too many opinions of what makes great leadership. Everyone's got an opinion, but I like research. I like data. I like it to be benchmarked in some way, and they do a really good job, because it's information they get from 360s and they're constantly spitting out really, really, really good white papers. Because it's data led. This is what the data is showing. So they've just done one on, for instance, strategic versus, is it more important to be strategic thinker, or is it more important to have high EQ, sorry. And that's an interesting one. But now they can go into the database and they can have a look. And so that's their latest sort of post that they've put out, and it's very interesting. It's like, it busts a lot of the myths that are out there. And I love that. That's what I love. So Extraordinary Leader, Zenga Folkman, if you're into leadership and you like it to be led by data, not opinion, then that is a wonderful book.
Brilliant. We'll put a link up on that. And so therefore, what's next for you, Colin? What's coming up in 26? We're at the start of the year. We're recording this at the start of the year. What's happening for you, and what's you looking forward to in the next 12 months?
So at my age, 62 years of age now, the children... You
wouldn't think it, Colin.
Thank you. Bless you. I appreciate that. It's the filter that I've got on here, really. That's what that is.
It's amazing.
So at 62 years of age, children have flown the nest. So my wife and I really want to travel. We have what we call a FAT plan, Fun Adventure Travel, FAT. And so much of the diary, remember, change happens in the calendar. Life first, calendar second. For us, travel. So when you look at the calendar, we're traveling a lot. So we're going to be in Philippines for the whole of February. We'll be in Bali for July and August. And so we're traveling far more. And so it's really about how I increase the amount of one-to-one clients that I have that affords us that lifestyle. And I don't need that many. That's the thing. I'm very lucky. I get paid very well for what I do. And so that's continuing on that plan. That's our plan, our FAT plan, as we're calling it.
Brilliant. Fantastic. Well, hopefully someone listening will think, I need to reach out to Colin, and I do hope that, and I can highly kind of recommend your input. And I would like to thank you very much, Colin. I think even in this kind of quick session, I think for any kind of aspiring leader or actual leader or wannabe leader, there's been a lot of great piece of information. So thank you very much, Colin. Have a great day, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading the newsletter and kind of working with you going forward.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me on. It's been brilliant.
Brilliant. Thanks, Colin.
Thank you.